All right, you guys quiet, please, because this is a fundamental question that's going to impact a lot of the Gilded Age stuff that I've kind of saved for the end on purpose, because we need to get our minds around some of the issues that the gold standard is going to deal with. So, Brett, explain to me real quick what the gold standard is.
Basically that you can have paper money, but you have it backed in effect by gold.
Beautiful.
Value.
Louder, so everybody here.
You have paper money, but you also have like an account with gold that backs it.
Cool. So we have $100 in money. What is this money? If it's paper money, what's it referred to as?
Currency.
Greenbacks, soft money, right? It's just paper money. It's a soft money, right? I asked you guys this early on when we first talked about economics in this class. What is a dollar worth? Yeah, what you can give. $1's not worth $1. $1 is worth what you can exchange it for. That's it. Because like $1, you guys always ask, well, what's that in today's money? Well, that's the question, right? What can you exchange it for? So we have $100. If I give Brett a $100 bill, now Brett has $100 in soft money. But the idea of the gold standard is this money is backed by $100 worth in gold. So in theory, under the gold standard ideology, Brett could take his money to the U.S. Treasury office and exchange that money from the U.S. government for $100 worth of gold. So far, so good? So that's the gold standard. It's very straightforward. Now, what is the argument for the gold standard? Why would you be pro gold standard? What does this do with money? Talk to Chavez.
It prevents inflation.
Good.
Money value.
It prevents inflation. That boy, I love how you said that. Good language. And by doing what? Protecting what? You said it prevents inflation.
And gives it value.
Cool. It protects the value of money. Because what can you get for it? $100 worth of gold. And therefore your money is backed. It's called a sound currency. Sound being strong or balanced or backed. Or a house that's built on a sound foundation is built on a good concrete foundation. It's not built on sand. It's not going to fall apart with a stiff breeze. So this is what it does. It prevents inflation. Good words. It protects the value of money. So looking at this from a big picture standpoint, who likes being on a gold standard? Yeah, big business likes this. Lenders like this, and I'll tell you why right now. Lend is a bad thing like that, by the way. Yeah, those that give loans. Loaners of money, not loaners, but loaners of money. They like the gold standard, and let me tell you why. Let's go back to the other side of things. What's the opposite of the gold standard, at least in this time period?
Hard money.
This is hard money, right? So you could have two options here. You could have no backing. These are really just called greenbacks. Greenbacks, like during the Civil War, when the federal government's just printing money to pay for things, there's no backing of that at all. They're just hoping that the economy picks up and that money can be worth something. It's not really a sound foundation idea. Or you could have, I heard, bimetallism. Bimetallism. What does bimetallism mean? Yeah. What does bi mean? Two, right? So you're going to use gold and silver to back your money. The ratio suggested by the Populists is a 16-to-1 ratio. That $1 worth of gold is 16, like 1 pound of gold is equal to 16 pounds of silver, because obviously gold is more valuable than silver because it's more scarce. And what is the argument behind this perspective? I saw Chavez raise his hand. It comes off of your reading. It comes. I know it's a high-level economic issue, but just I want somebody to take a shot at it. What's the argument behind bimetallism? Somebody who I have not explained it to after school or before school. Or maybe somebody that I have explained it to. Elian, what is it? What's the argument behind bimetallism? Since you came for help the other day.
Would you say that silver creates a lot of inflation?
So what's the argument for it, though? So yeah, it's going to create inflation because there's going to be more money in if you're backing it by gold and silver, you have the ability to print more money because there's then more silver in the world, gold in the world, in the U.S. Treasury. So you can then print more money, which could lead to inflation. Cool. But what's the argument for it?
Would you say that farmers can pay for
Good.
their tips?
The argument for it is there's access to currency. Because now, if we're going to back it by gold and silver, what can the federal government do? Make more money, print more money, because they can back it by gold and silver. But if you're printing more money, what are you inherently doing with the money? Back to the supply and demand. You're making your money less valuable because you're printing more of it. Back to my whole root foundational argument of what is a dollar worth, what you can get for it. So, I see it. Yes, talk to me.
Wait, so how do we prevent inflation in today's society?
We can talk about that later. Because now we have what's called the Fed, the Federal Reserve, which deals with, they control inflation by interest rates. That's more of a gov thing for monetary policy, fiscal policy, but we can get there. So let me tell you what the difference looks like if you are, so who likes this over here? Debtors. People that are in debt. Why? Because it's easier to get access to currency and then pay your debts. So the groups over here, the farmers, the working class, even entrepreneurs to an extent, right? The startup businesses, because they can get their hands on money to start a business. Because let me put it to you this way, back to my Brett argument. I loaned Brett $100. That's probably my first mistake. Right? We know Brett's not good for it. But I loaned Brett $100 in a time period in which we were on the gold standard. So I don't know, call it any time of the Gilded, 1870. I loaned Brett $100, and it went to Brett. Now how much money does Brett have? He has $100. Yeah, life is good, right? And he's going to pay me back later. He's going to pay me back in, we'll call it 1880. He's going to pay me back with interest. Ooh. I'm going to charge him 10% interest. I'm pretty good for this, right? That's not bad. How much does he pay me back? $110. Right, we added 10% of interest because I loan to money. I'm the lender, the loaner. He's going to pay back $110. Yes?
Yeah.
What is that $110 worth? What is, just answer my question, the same thing as what's a dollar worth. What's that $110 worth? What I can give for it. But if all of a sudden by 1880 we have a bimetal system, what can I get for it? Less than what I could have got for the $100 that I loaned him in the first place. That $110 is now less valuable than the $100 that I loaned him, because now our money's less scarce. We have more inflation. Our prices have gone up because there's more money in circulation. So therefore, that $110 is actually less valuable. Use a math symbol. All y'all Morels out there. $110. I know. My bad. I don't want to go too far advanced in the math class. $110 is now less than $100. Because $110 is under a financial system in which we have bimetallism, inflation has increased our prices, because we've increased our money supply, and therefore I can get less of that $110 that I could have just got for the $100 in the first place. Does that make sense now? Yes. So I know there's a lot of questions around this bimetallism question. It's confusing, it's complicated, I understand. But if we can understand, if all we can take away from this conversation is that those that want to loan money, those that are big business, they prefer a sounder currency with money backed by gold. Those that are poorer prefer more access to currency to pay back their debts. Because all Brett owes me is $110. Not 110 of gold standard money, not 110 in gold bricks. He owes me $110. So if we add silver to our currency, he can get his $110 quicker because inflation has happened, and now he can pay back, and now I'm screwed. So it's the banks, the big business, the lenders that are worried about this situation. So of course, in this Gilded Age, as we talked about the division of wealth, being rich and poor, of course this is going to be an issue. Because those that are getting richer and richer and richer prefer that we keep ourselves on a gold-backed currency so that inflation doesn't make the debts that they have, the money people owe to them, less valuable. It's a good argument. All right, thank you for my economic chat of the day. Today we're going to review Gilded Age politics, and then we're talking populists, the election of 1896 as our end point for today. As you see in your notes, I have a ton of political cartoons, a lot of them, and they're all blown up really big, so you guys can't complain that you can't see them. The key concepts are there. Largely, we're going to deal with economic instability, inspired agrarian. What does agrarian mean? Yeah, farm-based activists to create the People's or Populist Party, which calls for a strong, ooh, this is a new, a stronger governmental role in regulating the American economic system. This is the big takeaway. That by the end of the Gilded Age, we have movements that are asking for the government to step in and regulate things. I've asked you this question since day one. Right? What's supposed to regulate our economic system? What's supposed to regulate? Competition. Competition is supposed to regulate, but when competition does not do its job, the government should step in, according to this ideology that's coming out of the Gilded Age. I would tend to agree with. Your prompt is here. How much? Kind of a conclusion prompt for everything. How much do labor unions and the Populist Party impact American politics, impact American society in the Gilded Age? Sadly, what is the answer for this question? You think?
Minimal.
I think small to maybe moderate, you can say, for society, but politically speaking, it proves in election 96 that big business still runs America. There's a really good series, I believe it's on Netflix. It's called The Men Who Built America. It's fantastic if you want to review period 6 because it covers everything, business, labor unions, all of it. The last episode is on this stuff, and the episode is called like Buying a President. Because his argument is that the election 96 really proves that big business can do whatever they want, including picking the president they want to be president, and that's William McKinley. What's it called? Men Who Built America. So I highly suggest if you want something to do this weekend, if you want to like sit on your couch and veg, I understand that. It's been a long week, a whole 3 days so far. I suggest if you want to sit on your ass and do nothing, watch Men Who Built America. Okay, cool. Luis will. Excellent. So, awesome cartoon. I'm going to pull it off the wall.
It's wall-worthy?
It's wall-worthy.
How much was that?
More than your life is worth. So about $6 or $8.
I'm worth like $2 billion.
Okay, so I want you to look at this cartoon silently. For just a minute, it's on your paper, it's on here, and I have it here, I'll pass it around as well. What does this cartoon reveal or demonstrate about Gilded Age politics? This is an awesome cartoon. I'm not going to even try to rank it, but it's a really, really good cartoon. What is this cartoon trying to get? A minute of silence, please. And I'll let you talk about it. I'll pass it around. I will start it over here with our ladies. It is fucking good. I agree. That can be our phrase for the rest of any cartoon. It's fucking good. What is this cartoon trying to get across, though? Come to some conclusions. Come to some answers.
Don't drop it. Don't drop it.
Oh. This is like
Oh.
I wanted silently, but Brett started talking, so
Oh, my bad.
you are.
Be silent, guys. And then peace. You guys want to forget too?
All right. Take a minute, please. Talk to your partner. What's going on up here? What is this cartoon trying to get at? What are our conclusions? Ah, that's important. That's important. That's important.
Don't drop it. That's what I think. Because it doesn't look like they're helping, they're dragging you down. And then I don't know who that guy is.
Wait, 30 seconds.
Down and helping him
I need some answers.
They're dragging him down.
Ah, there's no use lifting me up anymore. What does it mean to lift Uncle Sam up? What are you trying to do?
I thought they were dragging him down.
Ah, now you're on the right track, to be honest.
Oh my God, look their faces. On the bottom, do you not see it?
All right. So there's a lot. There's a reason I love this cartoon, and it's because it's freaking layered as hell. I'll pass that over. No. Luis, use the handle the bar. So there's a lot of layers up here, but the first layer I want to point you to, as always, is the title. No, that's the magazine. It is a fucking good cartoon. A great past, and a pitiful present. Not today. Not today. A great past and a pitiful present. Cortez, what else does it say down there?
It's no use lifting me up to look at your monumental record, gentlemen.
It's no use lifting me up to look at your monumental records, gentlemen. Keep going.
What can you give me to stand on now?
What can you give me to stand on now? Run that back. A great past and a pitiful present. It's no use lifting me up to look at your monuments now. What can you give me to stand on that's current? So looking at the cartoon, what's the idea of past and present, visually speaking? What's the symbolism of the past up here? Okay, cool. We see in the background, yes, this connotates our past. Would you guys agree? Because it's like a monument. We see peace, 1865. Thank you. The end of the Civil War. Yeah. We see the surrender, and we see Lincoln. What's Lincoln doing?
He's being praised.
Lincoln's not being praised. Lincoln is emancipating the slaves. Right? We have a slave. He has emancipation in his hand. So who are we representing in the past? No. Go a little deeper. You should know better here. Nope. Who does this?
The Republican Party.
The Republican Party. Thank you, Daniel.
I'm sorry.
The Republican Party, who you could argue has a great past and a pitiful present. The Republican Party, who has a lot to look back on, and look what they're doing. They're saying, look, Uncle Sam, look at all the good stuff we used to do. Look at all that good stuff we took care of. Look at us. We freed the slaves. We saved the Union. We gave the country peace. We won the Civil War. It's the Republican Party that is responsible for all of these glorious things in the past. And yet, what do we see in the Republican Party's present? We see corruption. We see the whiskey ring. We see the fraud of 1876, the Compromise of 1877. We see land grabs. We see the whiskey ring. We see.
Are those heads of the president?
Uh-huh. So we see, and the cartoon is even clearer when I pass it around to you. I apologize. This is as good as it gets for the projector and the computer. But we see the Republican Party living on what? Living on the past, living on their former accomplishments, while in the current iteration of the Republican Party during the Gilded Age, we see nothing but corruption. What do you guys think? Good cartoon?
That's my top 10.
Yeah, it's got to be top, not because it's like super alarming to look at, because of the amount of layers that we have. So it's a deep cartoon. I know.
That's top 5.
I'm glad you guys agree. Now, when I have, remind me, I'll have you guys should do this, maybe for review activity, since we'll have a whole month. I can print out like 40 cartoons and make you guys rank them. I think that's a good review activity. Add that to your notes, your freaking tracking system from the top. Look, if I want to have 15 cartoons in my top 5, what are you going to do about it? I'm Boss Tweet. What are you going to do about it? What are you going to do about it? Cool. History nerds. So, take 2 though, please, and make sure both those questions are answered for me. This is good SAQ review. All right, what does this cartoon demonstrate about Gilded Age politics, and what SFI supports the point of view of this cartoon? All right, take 2. I want both those questions answered and answered well, while the rest of the cartoon comes around. Which one?
The South was
Oh, the donkeys off the cliff? Yeah, that's a good one. But Southern Secession. Do you have any tigers loose? Oh, it's hard.
I like the one the tweet bring.
2 minutes, thank you. 90 seconds left. What is the information that the important piece there is the second part. What is some SFI that backs up this argument that the Republican Party has a great past? Makes me happy. Today's starting well. Sure, but you go emancipation as a past accomplishment with this as what you're currently doing. Cool. It depends on how you look at the government, right? If you want, I would argue more so like corruption, like the splitting of the Republicans over the issue of civil service, the mugwumps, the stalwarts, like that's. Yeah, the Tweed ring, the whiskey ring, credit mobilier scandal, all that stuff that happens under Republicans' watch. A lot of this corruption is under Grant's presidency. Poor guy. Very good. He's a civil war general. He's also lead at Grant. United States. 4. Ruby asked a good question. Can we put the Chinese Exclusion Act? Absolutely. That backs up that the Republican Party is more. The mugwumps, the stalwarts, the half-breeds. They're one faction of the Republican Party that's pro-civil service reform and doesn't like the Republicans are doing. Good. Good. And then when you're done, I'll let you guys look at it later because you're going to block everybody. So, no, the stalwarts are not. Stalwarts are anti-civil service reform. All right, so go ahead and turn your page because I have basically the same slide that I gave you. The same slide that I gave you in the first day of school of the semester, but now you can put these issues in a broader context. What's up? Why are you smiling?
I thought it was
I'm glad. So, looking now that we're at the end of the Gilded Age, let's look backwards. Let's look backwards. We have these 4 key political conflicts, but I'm asking you to identify, this is some higher level thinking. You're not just answering a question I'm going to verbalize the answer for to you. But I'm asking you, how do these 4 issues represent part of the same broader conflict during Gilded Age politics? So we talked about civil service reform. What's the other phrase for civil service reform? Civil service. What? Patronage or the spoils system. Yeah, the spoils system. So we have this issue where we've been giving all of our federal government jobs to our friends when we get elected presidents. It's one of the things at a local and a state level that fuels political machines is giving away of jobs or who votes for you and the like. And during the Gilded Age, we have this big push to reform it. What's the act that actually reforms this? Yeah, the Pendleton Civil Service Reform Act under whose presidency? Chester, Arthur, because who got shot? Garfield got shot. So this issue of civil service reform is trying to figure out what to do about the government, who should have a say in the government, how should we run a government. But our second big political conversation during the Gilded Age is how much should the government regulate business? How much does the government regulate businesses during the Gilded Age? Yeah, to a very minimal extent, right? We have 2 arguments why. The first is in French, obviously, laissez-faire economics. Leave the governments alone, let supply and demand, let competition regulate things. What's the other big justification for why government shouldn't regulate business? Social Darwinism. Good, you guys are killing it today. Night and day since Tuesday, and I'm happy. But I'm always happy. The third issue is your social Darwinism. What should we do for poor people? What should we do about the lower intellectual, economic, and social classes in America? What should we do about it? And the social Darwinist argument is that our hands need to stay off because that would get in the way of evolution. Right? If they're poor, why would we help them out? Because we don't want them making more pores. And the last issue is machine politics, or political machines, in terms of who should step in and solve society's problems. Should we just leave it to local things to handle? Should the government solve the problems? Should we let people solve their own problems? Should people find their own solutions? And big picture, I just want you to take a minute to respond. What's the bigger political issue at play here? All four of these are symptoms of a specific disease. Right? Like having a headache isn't a disease. Agreed? You might have a headache because you're dehydrated. You might have a headache because you're stressed. You might have a headache because you have brain cancer. Could be. So, like, these are symptoms. What's the bigger political issue? What's the bigger political conflict that is present through all four of these? All right. Take two. I want you to respond, please. I want you to respond to writing. To the right of that. What is the bigger? What's it? Yeah, by yourself. 2 minutes on your own, please. What is the bigger political debate or conflict that is present here? In other words, what is the disease that these four things are symptoms for? Sure, a little deeper. Forgot. Yeah. Keeping your eye on what's the political conflict here? Yeah, you're not wrong. Sure. Disease to solve. Your face is 20 seconds. I love it. What's the type of gun? All right. So take a minute, please talk to your partner. Break this down. In your view, what is the real political issue that's present here? What's the real political conflict that's present here through all these four symptoms? Take a minute, chat it out for me. Go for it. Sure. Is it legal always? Okay. What's the conflict? What's the conflict? I hear you. 10 seconds. Ah. Good. All right. Ah. Brett, you gave me a really good 2-word starter sentence for this entire conflict. Well, you just said it right now. What was it? Should government. Dot. That becomes our question for all of these things. So what is our big conflict? What is our big debate? Johnny.
So what I was studying exactly was that like it's funny that the government is scared like to interfere with the business because they're like they have the business support. So like if they were to interfere with that, they would like probably lose everything that they have made.
Sure. So there's this worry. Maybe one of your test questions. Why is the government not getting involved? Because they're worried about upsetting a successful economy. Like, look, we're making all this money. We shouldn't get involved in that. Let them be. Good. That's part of the conflict. Think broader.
Alright, so Charles and I were discussing the fact how.
Well, Desi wasn't there?
Oh, well, I mean, we actually contributed somewhere. But, alright, so like, I'll keep it going. And we were discussing the fact that they all connect due to the fact that in society, like, the wealth gap, the rich, they decrease because there's less rich people, and the poor people increase even more because of the wave of immigration.
But what is our conflict, our political conflict here? What's our big picture political disease that may need addressing, or a big question? Kelly, what do you think? Yeah. So I think that the big in all of these things, the question is, go ahead, go for it. Take a shot.
Should government coexist with business?
That's a huge question. Should government coexist with business? And?
What?
Sure.
I like have the authority.
Yeah, like I'm gonna argue the big conflict is like, how pure is our democracy? How much is our democracy actually representative of the will of the people? How much is our government doing that actually reflects what people want? And all four of these things deal with this conflict of how much should business influence government? How much should the people influence government? If the people can't influence government, they turn to corruption. All of it comes down to the fact of like, how much is our government doing that is representative of the will of the people? Right? As government turns to business for donations, for political support, right? There's a really good parallel to today, if you pay attention at all to politics, to the Citizens United Supreme Court case that ruled that business can invest, for the most part, as much as they want into politics, create a bunch of dark money and a lot of potentially corrupt politics. A very recent Supreme Court case that you guys will cover at length next year. So there's a ton of correlation to today's same question. So you guys are all on the right track, but just think broadly. Like, how much is our democracy actually democratic? And in the Gilded Age, the answer is not very much. Not very much. I have a cartoon for you. I want you with your partner to identify what Gilded Age political issue is this cartoon referencing, and what is the point of view that this cartoonist views on this political specific issue. So first, what's the issue? Second, what's the view? Take two, use your partner, use your discussion. All those questions answered, go for it.
He's at the White House.
Why did I put
Okay, he's
So
going
for
to
these
White
four,
House.
though, you just ask you. Civil service reform. It is the spoils system, but they have reforming the civil service. Yeah. Good. Good. Jackson is started. So look at all the problems Jackson started that end up causing problems now. Civil service reform, AD removal, the bank and currency, all of the Jackson problems are really cool. Oh, what? Jackson vetoing everything, so the government doesn't do anything.
That's not enough.
When it all happens at
That's 16 feet.
The split in the Republicans, dividing government. Yeah. Ruby's face is like. That's not true.
That's racist.
That's why I'm kind of on and today makes a lot of things like long term make more.
I guess short term Jackson.
Short term Jackson was good unless you were unless you liked infrastructure, unless you liked the bank, unless you liked the.
Say he wasn't really that good.
No. He's just wanting to teach these super controversial and interesting.
I think we should have fun with it.
Yeah, that's faster. All right, 5 seconds. 5 seconds, 5 seconds.
He was a man of the people.
Was he though? He was a man of the people because you guys never got that chat about how he's not actually a man of the people. He's Trump.
He was really rich.
He's Trump before Trump. And yeah, exactly. So, talk to me please. I want to hear from Linda. What issue, which political issue in the Gilded Age is this cartoon addressing?
Oh, I was gonna say, like, political machines.
Not quite, but you're close. Cool, talk to me. Sure, there's corruption that's present. Christoph, talk to us. Thank you. It's civil service reform. Who is this representing? You don't remember his name? Guiteau. French guy, yeah. Charles Guiteau. He kills who? Yeah, so this is the assassination of Garfield being depicted in cartoon by saying, give me an office, give me a job, or I'm going to kill you. Turns out he killed him. So, what do we think? Thank you for the conversation. Because you're right, this could deal with political machines, and it's definitely corruption. But specifically speaking, this is it even looks ugly in French. Him threatening to kill the president if he doesn't get the office that he seeks. Now, is this person pro or con civil service reform, fixing the situation? Pro, definitely pro. Right? By making this whole situation a life and death decision to give somebody a job, obviously shed light on this view of the spoil system, of patronage, of giving jobs to your supporters, and making it a life and death situation. And as you can see, he's at the White House, and there's a phone. It says the president. So it's like he's called the president and said, like, give me an office or I'm going to kill you. And Garfield's like, bet. Guiteau's like, all right, cool, boom, done. That's why he's pro civil service reform. Reform is fixing it, right? So you want to make sure that your language is clear. That he's obviously anti-spoil system, anti-patronage, pro-reform, pro-fixing it. Reform is the fix. Yes, sir.
Did they kill that dude after?
So, those questions aren't relevant to our conversation.
The gun is not important.
The gun is not important. It's just the kind of gun he used. So, good, I'm glad. Look it up since you're not reading books in your 4th grade. So, moving to my point to show you guys with this whole page is that our political conversations for the entirety of the Gilded Age are part of the same political conflict. Our economic issues, as we get deep into tariffs, currency reform, labor union, all those things, our economic issues are exactly the same. Now, these issues on a micro level may be different, but at a bigger level, they're all dealing with the exact same conflict or problem. So, like I told you on the first day of this unit, we have 3 large economic issues during the Gilded Age. Tariffs, always. Currency reform, or what should back our money, and labor unions. So the tariff is obvious, right? The tariff benefits big business at the expense of farmers. The tariff benefits industry. The tariff removes foreign competition. The tariff then artificially inflates prices by taking away foreign competition. Currency reform does the same thing. What should back our money? Should our money be sound, backed by gold, so there's no inflation? Or should we back our money by gold and silver so there's more money in circulation? Or should we just do what the Confederacy does in the Civil War and just print money as if it was toilet paper? It worked out just like that for them. It's good to go. And labor unions, in terms of who are we going to give the authority? Are we going to let the workers have power to say what they want? Are we going to let big business have authority to pay what they want? Who are we going to side with in this conversation of business versus labor? So take the same minute and a half, 2 minutes you just did politically, and identify for me, if these are symptoms, what is the economic disease? What is the economic conflict at stake that all 3 of these issues are visible through that lens? Take 90 seconds, go for it. Chat me out.
Camera's on.
No, check it out.
Audience.
So,
Hey audience, I just want to tell you that you either give me a 4 or you're going to. Pass the 8
One more minute. What is the bigger conflict at stake here?
$20.
20 seconds. What is the bigger economic conversation at stake here?
that's it. That is not the song. Oh wait, no, that's a Jurassic Park one.
False? You actually. Got you. All right. 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Let me hear from Santos. Santos, what is the bigger economic conflict or debate at play with these three issues, sir?
So like policies that favor business or more people, like working class citizens, lower class, somewhat middle class.
So will our economic system benefit the rich in the hopes that everybody benefits? Or will our economic system benefit the everyday worker in the hopes that everybody will benefit? This will play a role for a good chunk of the second semester. Specifically in period 8, we're talking about Reaganomics. Should we make policies that benefit business in the hopes that that money will then fall down to everybody? Or should we make policies that benefit the working class in the hopes that then their efficiency will increase profit for big business?
Like Washington versus Du Bois.
Very much Booker T versus W.B. Du Bois. Very much like Reaganomics versus Great Society LBJ. Very much like and no, making policies that benefit the working class is not socialism. Socialism is working class ownership of production. So what do you guys think? This is just a good conversation. That'll put this conversation into context for the rest of the school year. Should we raise the minimum wage for the working class so that they can make enough money by working 40 hours to pay their bills? Or should we make it so that big businesses pay less in taxes and hope they give their workers raises?
No. Because you can't hope.
But trickle-down economics is just hope. You hope that if you make it easier for business, they'll hire more people, they'll pay their workers better, and everybody will succeed. Every single time in American history we've done that, it hasn't worked. But we're going to keep trying every time we elect a Republican. All right.
What's the other one called? That one's called trickle.
This is trickle down versus more like bottom up supply side. So I think Booker T versus W.B. Du Bois. All right, junior bench, please. Santos, good job explaining the fact that. But real quick, Eliam asked a good question. Couldn't you say that the political issue and the economic issue is exactly the same? Yeah. That's the whole point I'm trying to drive home to you guys is we're really looking at symptoms of the exact same disease in terms of how much power in American society do the people actually have. 0. It's a deep question. And this is why I gave you the reading, Are We Living in the Gilded Age 2.0? Because now the exact same debates politically and economically are taking place. All right, I have a cartoon. That I would like for you by yourself for 1 minute, please. A whole minute of silence. It's going to be golden. 1 whole minute. Identify for me what Gilded Age conflict from our list before does this little cartoon represent, and what point of view does this cartoon demonstrate? All right, take a minute. I want to see you guys responding on your own. It's a good cartoon. A minute of silence, please. Shh. If you can't figure it out for yourself. On May 10th, you're going to reach over and ask him? Do it as long as you don't get caught. No. What does it say? IWW. No. That's closer.
International Workers United.
No, it's not you. The IWW.
International World Workers.
No, it's not women.
It was.
You guys did not produce a whole lot. There's nothing on your page. Nothing on your page. Nothing on your page. No, you take a test with just your brain. I'm asking you to produce something. I want you to do something. All right. So this is a deeper cartoon. You guys actually know something about labor unions and my lecture 6.3 in order to access what this cartoon is saying. So question for you. Just looking at this broadly speaking, Luis, who looks good in this cartoon?
Labor.
Yeah, labor looks good. What's labor doing?
Working.
Labor is yes, they're working, but what is this message trying to send about labor? They are built. Thank you, sir. They are building industry. So is this cartoon pro or anti-labor union?
Bro.
Pro, but it takes a slightly dark twist at the end. Who is this cartoon anti, Eliam? The IWW. And if you remember from that lecture, I talked about the Knights of Labor. I talked about the American Federation of Labor, Gompers, Debs, these people that are more like working just to get higher wages, higher resources, better working conditions, better working hours. Who is the IWW or something? Remember? Go ahead, Noy.
Isn't it that forum, the group that reaches out to
Yep.
every place?
The International Workers of the World. What's their nickname?
IWW.
No, it was in our lecture. You guys gotta get better at remembering these things.
I remember I just remember the AF of A or AF.
The Wobblies. It was? That's okay. What?
I remember like what they did, but I don't remember
That's okay. Now you remember. And why are they seen in this cartoon and by society as more negative? What is it about them that we look at as negative? Go ahead.
Trying to destroy industry.
Not so much. That's what the cartoon said. But what are they?
They're more radical.
They're more radical. I told you on the cartoon, I can still see on the slide, it says they were the only group that's willing to overthrow capitalism.
Oh yeah.
I remember that.
Yeah, so they're way more socialistic, willing to overthrow capitalism by violent means. So this cartoon demonstrates that even within the views on labor, there can be a split between those that are pro-labor union but not so extreme as to be pro-international workers of the world. What's that? The economic conflict? The political conflict? What is a worthwhile labor union? How much power should we give to labor unions? The argument here is that our labor union is a slippery slope. If we let one group unionize, it's not eventually going to lead to socialism. It's like the Southern argument for states' rights, right? If we let them regulate blank, they'll take our slaves. If we let this group unionize, we're going to have socialism. And the next one kind of takes the counterpoint, the opposite point of view. All right, so the one below it looks a little different, takes a slightly different view on labor. I'll give you the same 2 minutes, but I want you to talk this one out because I want you to engage in a conversation with what this cartoon is trying to say. Same question though. What color does this cartoon represent? How does this point of view demonstrate maybe a different view on the labor movement than the first one did? All right, take 2 minutes to shout it out. What do you have going on? Yeah, this says red. Huh? What is this how is this cartoon a different point of view? What does this one have to say? Where are you going? Not so much. Who else is connotated as red in history? Yeah, it's pro like normal everyday labor unions. It might be a labor union group trying to say we're not crazy like these people. Cool. Yeah. But like it's just red. Who's red? The Red Scare. Communism?
Red October.
Yeah, that's what I was.
The Hunt for Red October. You Red October.
Yeah, that was during, oh wait a minute, no. That was like during 19, that was like during the First World War, like, before. A little before, yeah.
No, actually after.
Remember Simplified? Oversimplified?
Alright, I'm going to stop you guys there. In the interest of getting done in time today.
Of its own civil war.
So we can actually get McKinley elected in 96.
Where communism died.
Then you come in the news.
So, let me hear from Desi. What's going on up here? What is this cartoon? Well, first of all, what conflict is this cartoon representing? Which economic conflict? Whether it's pro or con, it's dealing with the conflict over labor unions, yes?
Yeah.
You think this is a pro-labor union cartoon? Chavez, what do you think?
Well, because of what you said, the Red Scare communism.
Red, in history, we're talking about two red scares coming up, one in the 20s, one in the 50s. Red deals with communism. America's always afraid of communism because communism is the opposite of capitalism, in which the government controls everything, not business. Government tells business what to produce. It's not supply and demand that regulates it. Government regulates everything. So every time our country is like, we should regulate, nope, no regulations, that's communism. Because big business is always worried that more regulations are going to decrease profits. So Brett's sweater, communist. It's cool to be communist these days. Red is communist. Okay, so Chavez, go a little deeper. Talk to me. What else do you see happening up here that demonstrates this point of view? What else do you see up here that demonstrates this you think it's anti-labor union point of view? Come on, there's a lot in there. Brenda, go for it. Okay, so we have a strike. What kind of strike? So who are they striking against? Carnegie. Remember the Homestead Steel Strike we talked about? One of the biggest strikes in American history? The Homestead Strike. And coming out of the smoke, coming out of the conflict, coming out, what emerges from the ashes of this strike is what? Is what? What emerges from this strike? According to the it's up there, guys. Communism. Is Christoph the only one that can think about cartoons today? They're going on strike, and what's actually coming out of this strike is communism. So obviously this is a much more anti-labor union point of view. We can use the Pullman strike, the Great Railroad Strike of 1877, the Homestead Strike. All of those strikes are valuable information to have in the back of your head, in your back pocket to pull if need be. Lovely. I know, and I just found this. This is a new cartoon I've never shown before. I'm excited about it.
This one?
No, this new one, the next one.
Oh, this, yeah.
So, that's a good one too. All right, and this is the last of our review cartoons for a second. So this is a good one too, though. I like this a lot. Maybe, yeah, it's not top 5, not top 10, maybe top 20-ish. 20-ish. So take a minute and a half with your partner, please. No. Take a whole 90 seconds. Answer the question below. How does this cartoon fit in the broader context of the Gilded Age? What is his point of view on Carnegie? Minute 30, go for it. The flag says library. Who cares? It's in Scotland.
I mean, he's a social Darwinist, but he believed that he didn't have to get
It's him in industry and him in society.
This reinforces the gospel of wealth at the same time.
He's like, I'm done growing my business.
No, actually, no.
That's one part of it. One of them is the gospel of wealth, where he gives
Yeah, that's the gospel of wealth.
whatever. What is that?
Industrialist.
And then the other one is
Library.
He's giving away a library. That's gospel of law.
Where do you see a plate?
whatever. He's getting something like.
He's giving a library.
Other one he's reducing.
All right. It's an awesome cartoon. I'm glad you guys sounded like you agreed. January, talk to me. It's all right.
Solid. 7 out of 10.
Nobody liked it.
Yeah.
You were like, what's the name?
And you didn't know it.
I have to say.
January, talk to me. What is this cartoon trying to get across?
It was showing how Carnegie handled his money. One side he was like ruthless towards his workers, but on the other side he was seen as like a generous person, giving money to those who seek the help.
Good, to seek self-help. Right, we have on this side Carnegie, the businessman, Carnegie, the monopolist, Carnegie, the ruthless industrialist, cutting wages, maximizing profits. Here's his working class, who looks mad with the original. Yeah, it's the original Arthur. Look at that guy. His name might even be Arthur. Wages are reduced 20%, excuse me. It's a big wage cut. On the other side, the other Carnegie. Brett, what is associated with this Carnegie?
The gospel.
The gospel of wealth. If you get rich, it's your job to contribute to society, to uplift the next generation, not by handouts, but by our work. Resources. Scholarships, libraries, ways, right? The idea, the analogy I guys used in class was like, you don't reach down and pick somebody up, but you put down a ladder if they want to climb. No. This is not social Darwinism. This is kind of in between. Social Darwinism is like, leave them alone. He's saying, here's a library, here's scholarships, here's opportunities. If you want to better yourself, the resources are out there. Again, the thing about gospel of wealth is social Darwinism is like, I'm here, you're there. That's how it's supposed to be. Gospel of wealth is like, I'm here, you're there. I'm not going to pick you up, but I'll put down a ladder if you want to climb for yourself.
You can also see the facial expression.
Yeah, look at him. He looks like grumpy here, and he looks older here. Right? He has like a darker beard versus a lighter beard. He's standing on his locked money. He's giving away money for resources, library, all kinds of good stuff. So where does this fit in the broader contextual development of the Gilded Age? What's a broader, I asked you that question, what's a broader context this fits in?
Profit at the expense of the workers.
Yeah, profit, expense of the workers, growth of industry, second, the massive industrial revolution. The first millionaires, monopolies, yeah, right? Gilded Age industry, absolutely. Those are some broader context things that this cartoon ties to. Good job so far, guys. You guys are killing it. Now I'm going to talk for a little bit, so buckle up. Buckle up as I crack down on all the other things we have going on. So, what? have done earlier. All right, silence, please. So for the vast majority of this time period, if I were you, I'd be taking notes, not rushing here, just if I were you. For the vast majority of this time period, our American presidents are, like I told you guys the first day of class, the forgettable presidents. Question for you, have you really talked about any presidential action since the first day? No. Right, other than what presidents do to put down strikes. Send the army, send the militia, force them back to work. Congress has all the power in this time period, but Congress is generally ruled by corporate interests. Congress is ruled by the financial industries. Congress is ruled by oil, steel, banking, Carnegie, Rockefeller, Gould. So while Congress has power, they're not using their powers to do anything. They don't want to upset the economic success that it looks like on the surface. They don't want to mess up this Gilded Age. Local politics are the strongest in this time period. It's local politics that are getting bridges built, that are getting libraries built, that are getting things done. But as you guys know from our chat last week, our local politics are run by political machines. So from the bottom up, our political system is broken, is corrupt, it's ugly, it's happening behind closed doors. It's very undemocratic at the city level, at the state level, at the county level, at the national level, as our president should kind of sit back and kick it. Okay? We'll talk about what this means in lecture 7.2 of the progressive era. But one of the reasons, for example, that we even get Teddy Roosevelt as president is because of political machines. It backfires, and it's a kind of a fun story we'll talk about next week. But our political machines are so powerful that they're even influencing who's president. So why is it? Why is the government so generally anti-action? Now that we're done with this unit, why doesn't the government do anything to solve this? What's that?
Laissez-faire, social Darwinism, and also the business and politics.
Sure, laissez-faire, social Darwinism, and business and politics.
Because our economy is already so strong.
The economy looks so good, we're growing so fast. Yeah, all of those reasons. Economic reasons, the belief in smaller governments. It's also important we talk about the wounds from the Civil War and Reconstruction. That neither party really wants to get too aggressive and piss the other party off because we just went through a traumatic split. It's like after you break up with your boyfriend or girlfriend, you guys get back together because high schoolers always do that. We were on a break. Neither side wants to piss the other one off because you barely just get back together. For about 2 weeks and then you start yelling at each other again. That's America's just like, let's just like not upset what's happening. We look good economically, we're growing, everything's cool, let's keep our hands off. Keep our hands off. So that's the why. So turn your page. What we do see, though, and one of the reasons why nobody does anything is we have very well-defined voting blocks. Our Democrats are white Southerners. They want to preserve this idea of white supremacy. They want to redeem the South. Catholics are voting Democrat. Immigrants are voting Democrat. Urban working people are voting Democrat. And farmers are voting Democrat. What do all these people, for the most part, have in common? Lower class, yeah. Right? There's no surprise that it's the Democrats that adopt, for example, bimetallism. Adding silver to the gold standard because it gives their voting bloc a chance to get more access to money. On the Republican side, the northern pro-business white people, African Americans are voting Republican. I'd argue for logical reasons. Emancipation, yeah. Northern Protestants and the old WASPs, the white Anglo-Saxon Protestants, who they're going to support Republican because of anti-immigrant laws. Keeping in mind that one of the little groups that first formed the Republicans was the Know-Nothings, was the nativists, right back in the 1850s. So this is a good continuity here as well, while also supported by most of the middle class. So the voting blocks, in my opinion, in this time period are very straightforward. The Democrats are the Democrats for pretty logical reasons, whether it's racial or economic. The Republicans are Republican for the same reasons, whether it be racial or economic. So there's a pretty clear line here that I think is worth lining out here. These parties will start to break up during the progressive era because they'll split. No more progressive. The Republicans kind of get their legacy back of change, and then it'll change again in the Great Depression, and it'll change again in the Civil Rights Movement, and that'll give us our parties from today. But what the Republicans will keep all the time will be pro-business, anti-union type of policies. All right, so I have two cartoons. This is a good SAQ practice because instead of looking at two texts and comparing what their views are, we've done that 100 times. Right? This guy's view on Reconstruction, that guy's view on Reconstruction, how are they different? We're going to do the same thing, but with cartoons. I have a box there for you. You're going to do this all on your own, though. So I have cartoon 1. It's pretty good. Take a minute, look at it. If you need it up here, it's on your paper as well. I have cartoon 2. And I want you to answer for me very clearly as if you were doing this for part A of an SAQ. How do these cartoons demonstrate an opposing view on the capital versus labor struggles of the Gilded Age? How do these two cartoons demonstrate a different view on capital versus labor? I'm going to give you 2.5 minutes, but I need you to see a strong response in your box that tells me that you understand the view of these two cartoons and how they deal with capital versus labor. Go for it. About 20 or so seconds left. All right. So I'm not going to have you read your entire response, but let me hear first from Johnny. What is the view in this first cartoon that you looked at?
So what I got out of it was that the laborers, well, the labor, like the class, they didn't really couldn't do anything against the capital since they mostly had in control of everything.
What do you mean by everything?
Like how it says there, the police, the government, the militia, and the courts. So like even if the labor class tried to do something, like they were like mostly everywhere.
Good.
So like they stopped them even when they tried to like.
Good. Is there anything organized labor can do to counter capital?
No.
Does this remind you of my quote? That was the do now that day? That labor wants to be the counterweight to capital but cannot. Only government can do that. Good job. Whereas the next cartoon takes a slightly different view. A slightly different view. What does this cartoon think about labor unions, Christoph?
That labor unions are out to destroy the industry.
Good. Good that labor unions are strikers, and we see strike as a weapon, agitation as a weapon. When God forbid we get our wages raised. Wage raises as a weapon, and they're coming to destroy factories and manufacturing. Records of industry. Striking features of alien labor agitators. There's another point here we should point. Yeah, that it's labor. The labor unions are immigrants that are coming into the U.S. to destroy our industry. Because there's that alien piece and the boundary piece. And they all, of course, are depicted as ugly, savage-looking immigrants in a way that would, raised definitely some eyebrows in today's world. Good. So this point of view is anti what? Anti-organized capital, exactly. Anti-monopoly, anti-trust. This cartoon is anti-labor union. Good. Nicely done, guys. Good. So post-Civil War, this is what our election maps look like. All right, I have here for you 1880, 1884, 1888. It's crazy. I want you to pull two things out of these maps. What's the first thing you notice in these election maps when you look at them, please, Louisa? What's the first thing that stands out?
That one.
Huh?
Can't see.
Brett's got a big ass head. I apologize.
It's in yellow.
Okay. So, what do all three of them have in common? Good. Very sectional. Right. In all three cases, our elections are very sectionalized. Yes, very sexualized. That's why I got excited. Which side is voting? Which section is voting Republican? Yeah, the North. The North, for the most part. A couple things change, like New York goes back and forth. The one time we elect a Democrat, Grover Cleveland, it's because New York flips. But for the most part, the northern states are largely going to vote Republican. The southern states are largely going to vote Democrat. And that's that. When it's this close, it takes one or two states to switch. That'll change the entire election, which is important. Right? So I asked you guys in your first question, like, what do the election maps reveal about political unity? What do you guys see up here? Pretty consistent. For the most part, the Republican states are staying Republican. The Democrat states are staying Democrat. So political unity, there's not a lot of it. There's a lot of sectional unity, though. Louisa, because it's a good question. Why is it that the southern states are so strongly Democrat? Who can't vote in the South? African Americans, right? The South that was so heavily Republican during Reconstruction because of voting rights being protected for African Americans is no longer Republican because of things like poll taxes, literacy tests that are keeping black people from voting, hence the strong Democratic nature of the South. Where's all of our industry? Yeah, in the North, so therefore it's no surprise then that the North is largely voting Republican. Good. Good. So turn your page real quick. It was just the same review that kind of gave you the first day as we hit the ground running. Looking at our presidencies, like there's not much I'm going to ask you to know. Grant, we covered him in period 5. Super corruption, right? All the things in that cartoon, the whiskey ring, the credit mobilier scandal. All of these problems are corrupt problems under Republican watch. All right? We talked about Rutherford B. Hayes. How does he get elected? The compromise of 1877 of this really close contested election. So he wants patronage reform. He wants civil service reform, but his own election was corrupt. So how is he about to lecture America about fixing their corruption when he shouldn't be in the White House if it wasn't for corruption? This crazy trade-off to giving electoral votes in the South. Garfield, he wants civil service reform, so he gets shot. Or he wants to fix problems, so he dies for wanting to fix those problems. I think it points out, like the Gilded Age is a ridiculous political time, showing that the one guy that wants to clean things up dies. Because he wants to clean things up. Right? Really demonstrating how embedded this corruption is in the American economic and political system. Chester Arthur, as you guys know, was the one responsible for that Pendleton Civil Service Reform Act, which creates a merit system, earning your government jobs. But the super important, definitely need to know unintended consequence of this is now politicians can't rely on people for their money, so they start turning to business for their money, making the Gilded Age more gilded. And they can't rely on people for economic support because they can't expect a job in return. They start turning to business. This leads to a new era, which you can make an argument is lasted to today, where politicians are more controlled by business than they are by public opinion. And then our last 2.5 presidents, because we get Cleveland twice, right? Cleveland, round 1, he's the first what to get elected in a long time? Yeah, right? So he wants to go way back to no government support for the economy. He wants to cut tariffs. He ends army pensions of paying our Civil War veterans because he doesn't want to use the government to spend a lot of money. Also, there's a lot of corruption in the Civil War pensions or paying the old retired soldiers because people are coming to claim pensions who were like 6 years old in the Civil War. Like, oh, you fought in the Civil War as a first grader? Like, really? He supports lowering tariffs because he's a Democrat. We get Cleveland, our first $1 billion Congress, which is just in your reading. The first time our federal government's budget is $1 billion. Why? Harrison's a Republican. Under him, we have the Mckinley Tariff. Super important. Passed by his Secretary of State, William McKinley, who's about to be president, who's very pro-business, who passes the highest tariff at that point since the Civil War. Things start to make more sense when they all come together. The McKinley Tariff bill is the highest tariff since the Civil War. It hurts Western farmers. It hurts the South. It pisses people off. And then we get Grover Cleveland round 2. And as soon as he's elected round 2, the Panic of 1893 hits. A big, big, big panic. And the Panic of 1893, it's when J.P. Morgan, it's in your test, bails out the government. J.P. Morgan gives the government enough gold to get them out of the Depression, which is terrifying. In return, he gets 30-year bonds, so he gets paid back over the course of 30 years, knowing that he's going to be rich as hell for the next 30 years because the government's going to be paying him back for what he did for them because of the Panic of 1893. But that just makes people look like, oh, how corrupt is the government that a businessman is here bailing out the government? It just adds to this belief, and it's not even just a belief, it's a fact, that in fact the government and business are in bed together. Craziness. Crazy, crazy. But again, this all makes more sense now that we're done with the unit and we understand how we got here. Now, the two panics are important to know because they fit in the broader context of the Gilded Age. Because they're I know, it's a freaking awesome cartoon. It's an awesome cartoon. I'll put it up after school if you guys want. But in 73, what are all of our panics caused by? Overexpansion of something. Right? We've done too much of something. In 73, it's too much railroad. Too much investment in industry. We've mined too much. We've tried to pull too much crap out of the ground, and now we have more supply than we have demand. And once one thing kind of collapses, the whole thing falls down. At the same time, the Coinage Act of 1873 demonetizes silver, takes us off silver backing, makes it harder to get money. People can't pay their debts. People can't pay their loans. People can't pay the bank collapses. Everything falls apart. Back to our question about the gold and silver standard. Jay Cook, and his company, it's a huge bank at the time. They go bankrupt because nobody paid them back. When they go bankrupt, that leads to a chain effect of a bunch of other banks that rely on them for money going bankrupt. So long story short, 100 railroads fail, 16,000 businesses go out of business, unemployment's at 14, 15, 16% for the time, and it's all bad. But the broader context is that it's all caused by overproduction and questions of the money supply. Those are broader Gilded Age contexts. In 93, we have a similar problem. What's it caused by? Overexpansion. Railroad speculation. We've put too much money into thinking that the railroads are our forever business. We've expanded railroads to the point where railroads are places where there's no demand for a railroad. Right? Like I asked you with Jackson, what's a bank without money? It's a building. What's a railroad without goods, supplies, or people to ride it? Yeah, it's a museum to what a railroad used to be. The P&R Railroad, the Pennsylvania and Reading Railroad, which is referenced in the game Monopoly. They go bankrupt. Mm-hmm. The game Monopoly is basically based on J.P. Morgan's life. Think about it. You're buying up property. You're not producing anything. You're just buying up property, charging people money, owning railroads.
What if they land on it?
Owning railroads. See? Charging people rent when they're at your place.
And you go to jail.
What do you produce in Monopoly?
Money.
Not exactly. Nobody's producing goods. Nobody's producing. It's just
Community check.
you want life. So, because of the Panic of 1893, we repeal the Silver Purchase Act. The government starts backing some money with silver to try to help. But unemployment is at almost 20%. 1 in 5 Americans is out of work in the Panic of 1893. This is the worst. This is called the Great Depression. How the Great Depression actually comes. 16,000 businesses fail, 500 banks fail. We have the Pullman strike at that time, which we've already talked about in the labor union time period. We have Coxey's Army, which is very important. It's the first ever attempt by workers to demand change from Washington, D.C. Thousands of unemployed workers and farmers are there asking for help, and what does the government do? Sends the army to break them up. This will be a good continuity and change. We talk about the bonus army at the beginning of the Great Depression. When Hoover gets scared, they're coming to march in the White House, and he hides in a closet and sends the army to kill them. And it's Morgan and the Treasury that loans the U.S. government $65 million in gold bars. $65 million in hard currency, gold freaking bars. Which is wild. I don't even have $65. This was over here like $65 million in gold bars. What a freaking G.
Is that worth more than $65 million?
At the time, yes, because we're not on the gold standard. You know what I'm saying? What's that worth today? I don't know. We should figure it out at lunch if you guys want to.
15 bucks.
Yeah, right? Today, money.
The equivalent of me, $2 billion.
The equivalent of you is about like a Taco Bell taco and a half eaten. Half eaten with freaking iceberg lettuce falling out. Yeah, none of the sauce either. Just ketchup, bro. So, but for both, I want you to understand that for both panics, they fit in a broader context of over-speculation, over-investment in business, and this boom-bust cycle that I warned you about when Jackson killed the bank in the first place. How many of our Gilded Age problems are legacies of Jackson? Indian removal. Patronage. That's the big thing. The boom-bust, we go up and down in the economy. 37, 57, 73, 93. All four have in common the fact that they come after our bank is destroyed. Yeah. So a lot of these like Jacksonian issues are coming to a head here at the Gilded Age. Infrastructure. I'm telling you, right? It's period 6 is when period 4 starts to make more sense. Calhoun. He's been dead for a long time. So all of this is taking place. Of course, I would be remiss if I didn't discuss the impact on African Americans, why they can't vote. The South is, yeah, seriously, the South's like, y'all hear something? I hear somebody asking to vote. But poll taxes, the idea of charging African Americans a tax to vote. Right? If somebody charged me a $5 tax to vote, that wouldn't hurt me. I can afford $5. I believe in voting. But if your choice is $5 to vote or $5 to feed your family, what are you going to do? I'm going to vote. My family gets I'm going to feed my family. So it's really worth understanding that, like, when you make voting a life or death decision, people are going to pick life, and it's not just via feeding your family; it's via KKK intimidation and lynching. That a vote's not worth that. Literacy tests. Right? We already talked about how undereducated the Southern. Talk about undereducated. We're talking about how undereducated Southern society is, this lacking of ability to read. Southern states are putting together literacy tests that are virtually impossible. If you guys remind me, right when after school hits today, I'll print out one from Louisiana for you, a Louisiana literacy test, and see if you can pass it, see if you guys get the right to vote. All right, listen. Chances are, you won't.
Name all the...
Yeah. Have you seen the beginning of the movie Selma? They're asking, all right, name every county in Alabama. All right, Luis, name every county in California.
Orange.
You don't know Los Angeles County?
Oh, I know Lowe's, but I don't know the other ones.
Orange, Los Angeles,
McFarland.
San Bernardino. So, no, it's in Orange County.
Long Beach.
No, that's in Los Angeles County.
Texas, New York.
Texas, New York. So, and then in my opinion, the literacy tests are the worst because even if it's fair, you're not letting them get educated. And then when they're not educated, you're not letting them vote. So it's this linking in keeping them uneducated, not just so they stay down in life, but so they can't vote as well. And then grandfather clauses. The most hypocritical of all of them, where it's like, oh, you can only vote in this county if your grandfather voted in this county. And people are like, my grandfather was a slave. Like, what do you mean if my grandfather voted? You owned my grandfather. It's 1883. Right? Like, slavery only died 18 years ago. What do you mean my grandfather could vote here? So this grandfather clause, and then 2 generations later, Could your grandfather vote here? No, because you... It doesn't make any sense to me, right? And then we see separation legally via Plessy versus Ferguson. There's an institution of separate but equal. In my opinion, the second worst court case in American history, Dred Scott. But except Dred Scott was overruled 3 years later with the Civil War. Plessy Ferguson's not overruled for, no, 97 to 54, 57 years. With Brown versus Boyd. Yeah, half a century later, we're still believing this situation that separate but equal is okay. And violence for African Americans. Lynching with no punishment, very common. Because even if you got arrested for it, you're going to be tried by an all-white jury, and no all-white jury is ever going to convict a white person for committing violence against a black person in the South. So throughout this time period, it's important that we're also using this grandfather clause to try to keep immigrants from voting. We're also using, so it's in general racist and nativist view in American history, which leads me to my next cartoon, which is definitely in the top 20. Definitely. Yeah, not even a question in this case. So take a minute with your partner, please. This is our last thing before I get to Populists for our last 30 to call it a day. But take a minute with your partner, and this asks you very clearly, what point of view does the cartoon take on Gilded Age immigration and the political and social debates that resulted? What is this cartoon saying about immigration? What is this cartoon trying to get to? I don't know. This is from a man named Jacob Kepler.
And I think the guys behind, Yes, sir.
All right, do whatever you want.
Their ancestors were immigrants.
This is titled Looking Back Up.
Well, yeah, their prior family were immigrants. Oh, so it's basically calling them hypocrites.
We're searching for immigrants. They are immigrants. They're immigrants looking for
8 seconds.
This
is a good one. This is a good one.
Chinese guy.
You were like, where?
And so this is a cartoon from a man named Jacob Kepler. It's titled Looking Backward. And the caption, I'll tell you in a minute. Slimey, what's going on up here? I cut the caption off on purpose.
Oh, well, Ruby and I were talking about how there's like all those 5 men are preventing an immigrant from coming in.
They're preventing an immigrant from coming in. Keep going.
And in like the background, kind of like their shadows, you could say, that however people, or like the people before them were immigrants themselves.
Interesting. In cartoon, political cartoon world, what do you think your shadow represents?
Oh,
Your past.
Your past. Look at our first one, right? The background, the shadow was Republicans living up to a high moral standard. The caption from Kepler is they would close to the new generation the same bridge that brought them and their families over. So we see these Americans, how do they look?
Well,
fat. What does fat connotate in American political cartoon history? Right? Yeah, they're wealthy, they're well dressed, they're well off. And in their past, we have a chimney sweep. We have a guy who's just selling goods. We have this guy, I don't know what the hell, he looks like a big ass leprechaun. Right? So we see this generation of old immigrants being incredibly nativist towards the new immigrants. Right? So this definitely fits in our context, our debates about immigration, with things like literacy tests for immigrants, the Chinese Exclusion Act, nativism, those views on labor unions being anti-immigrant. It's a good cartoon because it's true in 1880, it's true in 1980, it's true in 2080, right? These views that it's cool that my family was an immigrant here, but nobody else can come because my situation is different. The only group, there's 2 groups in American history that have not taken this view. Right? Native Americans, because they were already here, and African Americans, because they never had a choice. Everybody else's legacy came here at some point, and yet nobody has a problem turning around 150 years later and saying, oh no, immigrants are the worst. Right? And then this argument now, our argument about building the wall and immigration, right? People are always like, no, my generation came here legally. Yeah, dumbass, because there was no illegal immigration. That argument does not hold water. Shut up. Yeah. So, moving into the populists. The next question is supposed to say, what problems did farmers face? I apologize. I didn't catch it all. I already made 160 copies, and it's a long-ass package. I wasn't about to copy. How can I do this?
I have problems facing
Yeah, what
Faced a lot of problems.
Bro, some of your problems are already facing problems. Right? Like, Louis trying to bench press with a problem facing a problem. So,
It's because I was feeling
good story. We can go right now unless you want.
No.
So, the farmers are dealing with a lot of problems. My problems have problems. Yeah, my problem has a lot of problems. We talk about a lot of things in our lecture on Tuesday. First, farming has become more of a factory. Farming requires equipment. Farming requires investment. Farming requires loans. Environmental factors. Is it going to rain? Is it not going to rain? We're farming out in the middle of nowhere with no good water source. Homestead Act. There you go. Droughts. Over-farming. Overproduction. Falling prices. All of the stuff we laid out for you on Tuesday in class, they're loans. They can't pay back because the prices went down because they produced too much. The railroad monopolies are charging them, Winchell Railroad is charging them whatever the hell they want, and tariffs hurt farmers, as do these panics. So farmers got a lot of problems. Farmers got a lot of problems. Here's an example. It's a really cool example of how a farmer is raw. It's an advertisement by the Populists. In that you have the U.S. price and the foreign price, and we're paying more for the U.S. goods. Why? The tariff. It's the tariff that's making us pay more for our goods because we could have got that good overseas for cheaper, but because of the tariff, we can't. This is about as straightforward as a situation as I can get for how the tariff hurts the farmer. The U.S. price is $112, the foreign price is $90. We got to pay $90. U.S. price is $36, foreign price is $29. We got to buy the U.S. one. Who does this help? Yeah, big business, industry. And at the expense of what the farmers have to pay. So we've already talked about the fact that at this time, we have monopolies against labor unions. Where does the government policy keep siding with? Yeah, up. But they at least formed a union. They at least made an attempt to come together to deal with problems. The farmers have not done so much. At this point, farmers make up the majority of the working class in America until the 1920s. Farmers are still the biggest chunk of society, but they are the last group to organize. They're the last group to try to say we have strength in numbers. Why? Why have farmers not said we have strength in numbers yet? Farming is based on individualism. Has been since Jamestown. That farmers believe in being self-sufficient, doing it their own way, relying on hard work, pulling yourself up by your bootstraps, planting some seeds, watering it, and all of a sudden you get slavery. But farmers have always been this belief in individuality and taking care of their own business. So eventually by the 1880s and 1890s, the farmers are going to unite 3 different ways. The first is socially. Farming is a very isolated lifestyle. You kind of live on your own. Who do you live with? Your family, right? And most of our families suck. So you don't really see your chickens. Yeah, you don't know what happens with them chickens. So the first thing that happens is farmers start forming what's called the Grange movement to deal with farmers' social problems. Just get together to build some community. Again, I don't know. I'm just talking. Yeah, that's it. To an extent. So the farmers are going to begin organizing socially. But once you start coming together socially, you start realizing you have a lot of shared problems. Right? Much like the colonists. Right? We go back to like the Albany plan, and they're like, oh wait, we all hate it. And the next thing you know, they're uniting over other things. They're going to create some economic groups. The Farmers Alliance, or the Southern Farmers Alliance, a Colored Farmers Alliance, a Western Farmers Alliance, to try to say like, hey, if all of us come together, maybe we can demand the railroads drop their prices a little bit. Trying to say there's strength in numbers economically. But their big political contribution is the Populist Party. So eventually these two groups are going to morph into the Populist Party as they're going to demand some political changes. It looks like this. It's a nice little funnel for you. It's a cool funnel, huh? I'm pretty proud of myself. I did the same funnel for you guys. Remember, for the Republican Party of the 1850s. Some Democrats that want more business regulation. The Farmers Alliances that I talked about, the Grange movement, and the Greenback Labor are going to come together to become the Populist Party in 1892. In 1892. And they're going to come together under this populist platform. A big P populist is a party. Little p populist, like so, is just any movement that's driven by the common people. A popular movement. Populism, small p populism, is not based on one specific party, but this idea of coming together to solve problems as a group by the lower classes of society. That's why they're called the People's Party or the Populist Party, if I were you, I'd know both. And this is the view. I'm not going to let you spend too much time on this because we're low-ish on time, at no fault of yours. But this is the Populist Party view according to maybe somebody else. Take a look at the cartoon for me, please. What do you see in this cartoon?
Balloon.
We see a hot air balloon. Interesting.
It's the Omaha platform.
The Omaha platform. That's what they're going to stand for. Okay. What's their hot air balloon titled? What's the name of their balloon? Sure. A platform of lunacy. Pro or anti-populist?
Anti.
Yeah, and look at they're trying to say they're slapping together all these different groups, and they're all sewn together. We have the Socialists, the Old Granger Party, the Knights of Labor, the Greenback Party, the Farmers Alliances, the Free Silver Party. What are they trying to say about the populists?
They're a mess.
Yeah, they're just an amalgamation of a bunch of other little movements that are slapped under one title. If you want to turn your page, please. And I'm actually going to let you skip the text of the Omaha platform. But I would read it before Monday for you. But their platform calls for the things you guys have been identifying, the whole unit, as solutions to their problems. Political problems and economic problems. The first political problem is they want direct election of senators. Bless you. At the time period, the only group we directly elect is who? No, Electoral College.
Like state?
House of Representatives. So if we elect our House of Representatives directly, senators are elected by our state legislatures. So we're worried that's too corrupt. We want to actually pick who our senators are, so direct election of senators. They want to create ballot initiatives for being able to change things by going around Congress. You can go to your column if you want. And they believe in creating a more secret ballot. So people can't just know who you're voting for, which will get rid of the political corruption and political machines. Economically, they would like, a graduated income tax, which means the more you make, the more you pay. They want free coinage of silver. And this is the big one. They want nationalization of the railroads. The railroad should not be a private business. The government should run railroads so that nobody's taken advantage of. The government should run things that are public needs. Since these farmers need railroads, people shouldn't be profiting off of them. Since there's no competition. I'll leave you a second. I'm sure I got 11 minutes. We're good. Montessori used to always tell you guys, you shall not crucify mankind upon a cross of gold. Last year. Whenever you try to start preaching, that comes off of this actual speech. So this is what they stand for is what I just told you about, right? Free coinage of silver, a new income tax, direct election. But big picture, they want more government regulation. They want more government involvement to regulate things that government has not regulated before. Which party is going to be very against that? Republicans. Which party might be kind of sort of for that? But the Democrats have always been a party of small government. So that's going to create this is going to begin to create the shift. The Democrats have always been small government states' rights, and it's these populists that are going to drag the Democrats in a different direction. The 8-hour workday, why would they put that in if they're mostly farmers? To attract northern working class, civil service reform, and getting rid of national banks because farmers have always been anti-national bank. I know, it's deep, huh? So, looking at this cartoon, It's a good one. It's not top anything, it just makes me smile. Right. Especially because Montes has begun trying to become a more avid bike rider. The other day he came in like complaining that he hurt his wrist when he fell on his bike. Yeah, there he is! Every time you talk about riding your bike, I think about this cartoon.
Why?
Because you came in talking about how you tried to turn really fast and you crashed, and then this is also implying a similar message.
Bimetallism.
So take a look at the cartoon. Our front wheel, our front tire is the gold standard. Our back wheel is the silver standard, and what is this cartoon implying about bimetallism? Yeah, it creates instability. It creates chaos in our economic system. So this, of course, is a very anti-populist point of view on what to do with the economy. It also looks a little bit like Montes trying to make a quick left on his bike.
I rode my bike yesterday.
Somebody give that man a phone. You can call me, I care, George. So, in the election of 1896, but can we understand why?
Just because I leaned back too much.
I don't really care what happened. I told you to shut up. So, can we see why this platform would be very, very scary to who? Big business. This which I need you to get your head around is this populist platform is terrifying to big business, who've been getting by without government regulation, owning the railroads, doing their own thing, enjoying the gold standard, abusing their workers, buying their senators, using civil service and political machines. So this movement is meant to reform all of those earlier problems I had you identify. And in the election, we have McKinley, who is very Republican. He was the one who was responsible for the biggest tariff at the time, since the Civil War. Pro-big business, pro-tariff, pro-gold standard. And he creates a coalition of business owners, skilled workers, who think they're going to have more value in the economy, and rich farmers. So basically the more valued members of society. And their campaign is heavily financed by big business. By the man named Mark Hanna, who was in your reading. Now, what Mark Hanna is doing is saying, hey, look at this platform. You're a business owner? You like this platform? No? Donate to this campaign. No? Donate to this campaign. No? Give me some money. No? Donate to this campaign. By pitting in the election business against non-business. William Jennings Bryan runs as a Democrat/populist. So now the Democratic platform has absorbed the populists as a pro-farmer, anti-tariff, pro-silver, trying to unite the farmers, the unskilled labor, the immigrants. And they have a very, very small budget. Why? Because they're backed by nobody. Right? Apparently it comes down to passing the hat at rallies, like a freaking offering. Like, I got to make it to my next campaign stop. I got to ride the train to Chicago to campaign, but I don't have enough money for a train ticket. Donate some money. So it really is like big business against the nothings in society. And he makes this famous speech. Makes this phenomenal speech. And he references Andrew Jackson. What we need is an Andrew Jackson to stand as Jackson stood against the encroachments of aggregated wealth. And he argues the two views on the economy. There are those who believe that if you just legislate to make the well-to-do rich, their prosperity will leak through on those below. Has that been true? No. The Democratic idea has been that if you legislate to make the masses prosperous, you make everybody successful, their prosperity will find its way up and through every class that rests upon it.
Is this when they think, oh, it's communist?
No, but that's always the argument, is if we give too much to the working class, we're going to become socialist or communist. So this is the key. You come and tell us that the great cities are in favor of the gold standard. I tell you that the great cities rest upon these broad and fertile prairies. Burn down your cities and leave our farms, and your cities will spring up again as if by magic. But destroy our farms, and the grass will grow in the streets of every city in the country. I mean, the whole country's built on farming. And the lower class pass policies that benefit us. We'll all win. At the very end, you shall not crucify. mankind upon a cross of gold. It's a good view. We have this obviously very pro Jennings Bryan. He looks like an 80s porn star. This pro Jennings Bryan argument that here he is fighting for mankind to get rid of. What's the cross of gold stand for?
Jesus.
No. What does the gold cross stand for? The gold standard. Yeah, that we need to get off the gold standard. But then we have this view of Jennings Bryan, which is a little funnier.
They're building William.
They are both named William, but what is this cartoon getting at?
Oh, that one was.
He's only 34.
What's Mandy?
He's young, he's 37. So McKinley was, in 1861, he's fighting in the Civil War. In 1861, he's just a toddler. And he's upholding his country's honor, he's still doing it. He's crying, and he's still doing it. But what we see instead is that William Jennings Bryan wins the South, wins the West, and loses the shit out of the election. The popular vote is very close. The electoral vote is not as close. And this big movement to give power to the people, to give support to the masses, to build our economy on the laboring classes, not the elite. Back to this point, legislate to make the masses prosperous and then let that go upwards. It fails. Why did he lose? His emphasis on the gold standard and silver undermined his support in urban areas. He's not as good at forming alliances as other groups. Labor unions are worried to vote for him because they're worried it's going to kill business and then kill their jobs. And at the end of the day, the real reason he loses is McKinley's campaign was too well organized, was too well funded, and was too well backed by big business. Our effects, one of the first things McKinley does, economically speaking, is the Gold Standard Act, which puts the U.S. in 1900 on the gold standard, reaffirming our nation's commitment to gold backing our money, which is a huge victory for the forces of economic and business conservatism. It's a pretty good cartoon up there. All right, the silver guy is crying. The gold standard is killed by bimetallism, sound money law of 1900, that we're now back on a gold standard. So the populists don't win. Why do we care about them? One, they begin to shift the views of the Democratic Party towards being more bigger government, more involvement. But two, all the things they're asking for eventually become law. It's just that they're dead when it happens. They were a major factor in local elections, state elections, national politics. They elect some governors and senators. We'll talk about next unit. Jennings Bryan, of course, runs. And eventually they get absorbed by the Democrats, much like all these other little parties we talked about. The National Republicans become Whigs. They become Democrats. But the major impact is they keep this belief in reform alive. This belief that comes off of like the Second Great Awakening that we can fix America's problems. In some ways they're considered uniters. They bring groups together. In other ways they're considered dividers because of their insistence on getting rid of the gold standard. But their legacy is very strong in terms of using politics to change society. The stuff they want, direct election of senators, 8-hour workday, all of that stuff becomes true during the next era of the progressive era. And the progressives are like, look what we did. And the populists are dead, but they'd be pissed off if they didn't get credit for it. Now I'll leave you with this. And what this says about the end of the Gilded Age politics, and then we are done with period 6, and the bell will ring in 30 seconds. So come after school. It's your last Thursday before the test. Yes.